Exposed. Hashtag drama alert. There's news to expose. Hashtag breaking. SS Sniper Wolf has a vagina. More on that at 11.
Vagina.
Hey guys, this is Scarce here. Lots of news today, lots of exposure, and double upload. Expose, 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 You're exposed. You're exposed. You are exposed. Exposed, 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 exposed. You are exposed, sir. I'm gonna expose you. Expose you. Oh my god, expose you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am completely pissed. I was gonna write a script for this video. Why am I still getting hate?
Hey, what's up guys, it's Scarce here, and so from now on, I am going to report the news. Let's go inside the stories!
Expose, 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 expose. You're exposed. You're exposed. You are exposed. Expose, 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 expose. You are exposed, sir. I'm gonna expose you. Expose you. Oh my god, expose you. Expose, 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 expose. It's time for some exposure. Some exposure. Some exposure. Expose. Expose myself to you. To you. To you. E-X-P-O-S-E. Expose. 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 Exposed. 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 Hashtag drama alert. There's news to expose. Hashtag breaking. SS Sniper Wolf has a vagina. More on that at 11.
Vagina.
Hey guys, this is Scarce here. Lots of news today, lots of exposure, and double upload. Expose, 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 expose. You're exposed. You're exposed. You are exposed. Expose, 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 expose. You are exposed, sir. I'm gonna expose you. Expose you. Oh my god, expose you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am completely pissed. I was gonna write a script for this video. Why am I still getting hate?
Hey, what's up guys, it's Scarce here, and so from now on, I am going to report the news. Let's go inside the stories!
Expose, 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 expose. You're exposed. You're exposed. You are exposed. Expose, 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 expose. You are exposed, sir. I'm gonna expose you. Expose you. expose myself to you. To you. To you. E-X-P-O-S-E. Expose. 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 Expose.
What's up, everybody? See, yes. Wow, I did everything right. I did everything right on the first try. Go fucking me. What is going on, Liana? How the hell are you?
I'm all right, Rich. How are you?
Today was a very good day until I found out news literally like 10 minutes before I almost forgot to send you a stream key because I forgot we were streaming.
Oh, no.
But luckily, yeah, no, we're here. They're not doing any more backwards compatibility on the Xbox. That's it.
After
This batch today.
There's so much going on with Xbox that I am not understand. There's so much. I watched that presentation today, and my takeaway is I really got to watch Red Notice. And The Rock is very meaty, but also very charming. Yeah, they're doing
He's a hunk of a man. Yes.
I mean, the fact that he made his fun Shandy self look small, that's quite a feat. He's gotten pretty swole.
I think his nipple is like the size of my head. But anyway.
He's a very large man. But yeah, because to me, I think Game Pass is the most brilliant idea Xbox has had in ages.
Yes, I agree.
And they're pushing Halo again. It's almost like this whole presentation was designed around Halo Infinite, and then Halo Infinite got pushed, and then they were like, "Well, we got this tape from Dwayne Johnson, and Netflix has paid us money to advertise. We got to do this, but what do we do?"
Yeah, and it was like they ripped some YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's really weird. I was like, wait, what? I feel like I'm watching like a YouTube documentary. It's strange. It was weird.
I mean, Game Pass is a perfect opportunity to remaster some of these old games, put them out to, a younger demographic of gamers and have them rediscover them. I mean, Sunset Overdrive, there's no reason people can't be playing that game now.
And it's a good game. I didn't play a lot of it, but I played some, and it's a fun game.
It's my favorite game possibly of the Xbox One cycle. They could cut the damn TV show out of Quantum Break, re-release that. Perfectly good game without the 20-minute TV episodes, right?
Yeah, without the softcore porn quality acting.
Right, exactly. There's a bunch of games. I mean, go back and they got all that Rare catalog. They got the problem is a lot of their exclusives were timed exclusives that then went to other platforms, but still, Conquer, man. Conquer's still classic. Don't know how much the humor holds up in this day and age. But I was really expecting a really cool kind of self-effacing walk down the history of Xbox, and it was ads for a bunch of TV shows and a beta.
I mean, they showed some of the history, but it could have went deeper into like how Xbox started out and how it was like a brainchild of 3 different people there, I believe, and basically Steve Ballmer's armpits got really sweaty and he told them to fuck off, and the developers, they could have went into interesting stuff like that. I mean, it was kind of like just a surface level tribute, I guess you could say. I agree.
Yeah, it was just strange and didn't really focus on. I think Xbox is struggling with the fact that they created, that the whole Dude Bro Gamer was a marketing creation of Xbox.
Yes,
they created this whole type of gamer, and of course that's what everyone outside of gaming thought gamers are, and they're kind of despised because of that. And so Xbox doesn't quite know
and
how
it still
to...
has some of that image. It still has
some
of it, and they don't want it. they don't want it because that's not profitable anymore. That's kind of like
Right.
that's shunned upon. Whereas like in the early 2000s, it was like Mountain Dew and Halo, yeah, and Doritos.
And, I mean, Dorito Pope got in the reel. Good for him, right? But it was
You
still
talk about Jeff Keighley.
yeah. I mean, you cannot mention Mountain Dew and Doritos without mentioning Jeff Keighley. But yeah, I mean, The Rock basically did what the whole press conference should have done, which is I didn't see the L before. I thought your shirt said poo.
I know everyone
and I was
thinks
totally
it says
okay
poo.
with that.
Either like Winnie the Pooh. I'm sorry, I had to because everyone's like, "Is this shirt say?" No, it says Polo.
I'm good with the same poo.
Yeah, I'm good with it saying poo. If it said horse, I would wear it. Anyway, sorry, continue.
It's good, but I mean, it's just sort of like he did what the whole press conference should have done, which is sort of lovingly make fun of himself from that time.
Yeah, that was actually pretty funny with The Rock. I gotta say, his giant nipples aside, that like, and I always find when he came out, The Rock came out with Bill Gates initially back in the day. That was one of the most. There was zero chemistry with them, so there was so much chemistry with them. You get what I'm saying?
Well, they had him on such a leash when he was with the WWE. He could not do unscripted. He came through the music station that I was working at the time, and he just had no comeback. So to see how he's evolved is pretty amazing. It shows people can sort of improve and find themselves. But yeah, good for him. I mean, he's clearly got a really good sense of humor. But that it always drives me crazy when it's there in a presentation, right? All they had to do was follow that lead, and everything else was so corporate that the only other highlight for me was that one lady who was presenting something, and it was like a dress that looked like a zipper top, and it looked like she was wearing no pants. And then the F.E.A.R trilogy being out.
Yeah,
that was pretty much it for me.
And it's 60 FPS. Well, I think no, 2 isn't. The second one but the first and the third, they have auto HDR and high FPS mode.
F.E.A.R 2 is my favorite. Of course, it's not the one.
Yeah, I was kind of like, why? Like, why? If they could do F.E.A.R 1 and F.E.A.R, maybe it's something with the engine, I'm sure, an emulation, but...
How does the auto HDR work? Does that not create some goofy resampling?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can. Sometimes, like why is that rock look like it makes the colors sometimes look weird.
Yeah.
But generally, it gets it on point. F.E.A.R is just like basically a grayscale game with blood anyway, so it won't have too much
blues and some blacks. Yeah.
That was back during the mid 2000s when if your game didn't look like a wiped piece of toilet paper, then it wasn't trendy. Remember that? Realism, everything is brown.
Well, it was also they didn't want colors to bleed on that wasn't cathode ray tube monitors still existed. I miss the days that when someone said CRT, they were talking about a television. Yes. I want to go back to those days, not only because cathode ray tube TVs were freaking awesome and PlayStation 1 games still look best on them.
Absolutely. Fact.
But also, yeah, I miss the days where there was an innocence back then. But yeah, it was sort of back then you had to do different things for low-end systems, and color bleed was a big one back then. Even in TV, you couldn't drive your reds too high or it would bleed on old TVs. And so that was part of the reason everything was brown and green. At the time, that's what looked good on Unreal Engine too.
Yeah, I think it was more that and the fact that we thought that was kind of like that's what makes things realistic, and then people were like, yeah, it's a video game though. I like to not look like I have vision problems and can only see grayscale, so pick up and they finally realized by the 8th generation people like color. That's why we have color TVs.
Yeah, but it's also learning to work with color. I mean, I think World of Warcraft was ahead of its time with that. They did some really, really nice things with color.
Yeah, that's true.
And that thing looked good on anything you put it on. Say what you want about WoW, that kind of design, excellent.
Did you try the new Call of Duty, speaking of Activision and Blizzard? And
I read up on Call of Duty, And whenever there's Call of Duty should just be a fun action game. And whenever I start reading about, oh, it's historically accurate, it's not historically accurate, that ship has sailed on COD. Can I please get some interesting gameplay that makes me want to have an adrenaline spike before I'm supposed to go to sleep?
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I'm at with it. I mean, you want pretty environments. Battlefield is more, yes, I know it's evil to say that title is superior to Call of Duty in any way, but I mean, for shooters, for me, I'm a Metro fan, and I know that's not the multiplayer shooter, but that's more my speed with shooters, is something like a Metro, something that at least tries to do something different with its level design and what it tries to do.
Yeah, I get what you... I kind of... Well, actually, like, I played a little more of Metro Exodus after they did the update on the Series S and X. But I kind of... One thing I like about Call of Duty is that it's something I could just pick up, whether I want to play for an hour or 5 minutes and just want to play a round or two, I could do. You know? The thing about Battlefield, too, is that even though it does have modes like deathmatch and things like that, I always feel, I don't know, I just feel, the controls always feel off, even with the high refresh rate. It just feels different.
A little sluggy?
Yeah, it feels sluggy.
Yeah.
Even it doesn't matter if I'm playing at 120 FPS and on a monster PC. It always, I get what they're trying to do, but I just don't, the Killzone did that a little bit as well. Like the Killzone 2 and 3, like they made it like you were swinging around a giant elephant dick when you were moving.
Yeah, Killzone was very sloshy.
Yes.
That way. Resistance was as well. Sloshy. Yeah.
Resistance never looked... What's up, Beal? I'll answer the super chats in a second, but I never thought Resistance looked amazing. I always looked at that game even back in the day, and I'm like, this looks like a PS2 game.
Resistance was a very interesting idea, had a really interesting, like, art concept that never really realized in execution. It was a cool idea, never quite got there.
And it was fun, but it just, I don't know, like the second one, a lot of people lost the plot with that one. Then the third one, people liked, but by that point, I think people just moved on from it. It wasn't, they tried to make it like it was a PS3 showcase, the original one, and it didn't look, I would say that for the 360, it ended up being a shit game, but Perfect Dark, I thought looked way more, at the time, next gen than Resistance.
That was the one moment I had in the Microsoft showcase where I'm like, oh, right, that game! I completely forgot about the Perfect Dark franchise. And yeah, I remember that one fondly.
Yeah, for the 360 you're talking about?
Yeah.
But it looked great, but I did not like the gameplay. That sucked.
Yeah.
I was just like...
Well, I think a lot of people forget how jank a lot of those launch or near launch titles were on the 360. Like, I tried to play Cameo, but the physics were just sort of, I love the idea of it, but, you know, I ended up going back to, Katamari Damacy on the PS2.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I ended up going back to that.
That's the one where you just roll over a bunch of shit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and it's very Japanese, and there's nothing like it, and yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm kind of over the console war narrative in the press with this stuff. I think Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo, but Nintendo always was, two totally different constituencies catering to two totally different types of player.
I think mostly console wars have been dead for a while. I don't even see it as much in the press anymore. I think that kind of peaked in 2007. And between like 2007 and 2011 was when that was like at a fever pitch, and then people were like, yeah, who really gives a shit?
Business websites like to report on it. Like, it came out when the PS5 had to cut supply projections. That's a weird one too, right? Because I mean, we called the Steam Deck on a previous stream that was like, if that comes out on time, we'll be very surprised. But it's the chip shortage, right? The Switch is affected. Yeah,
everything's affected. The Switch.
Yeah.
Who expected the Steam Deck to actually? I knew that wasn't.
Yeah.
As soon as they were just throwing, it's like the Amico. Like they were just throwing. Oh yeah, it'll be around this time. Okay, thanks, Chief. I'll sit at my door waiting for it and hold my breath for you.
Yeah.
Like, when they don't give a date,
Yeah.
and just say a month, it's not coming.
Yeah.
Just forget about it.
Yeah. And I mean, those are always projections anyway. Again, I mean, I don't know why they. I get why they want major tentpole games to come out at holiday, but I don't find that big games are selling systems the way they once did.
Because they're available on almost everything now.
Even the exclusives for like the PlayStation, I don't know people who are buying consoles for a single game anymore or a single game franchise.
Yeah, that's not really the lore anymore. You're right. Yeah. I mean, like, there was a time where you thought about cars are affected too, Lewis. Yes.
Major appliances, like household appliances, are affected.
Like, you used to buy a PS. There's times you used to buy a console because it had third-party exclusives, like Grand Theft Auto, until San Andreas was exclusive to the PS2.
Yeah, back in the day.
You know, so it was like, yeah, there was a time you even bought a system for its third-party games you couldn't get anywhere else. And there was a lot of times, even during the 7th generation, now a third-party game, it's almost guaranteed that virtually all of them are to come to PC and not skip PC. But there was a time that wasn't the case during the 7th generation where you would have games you couldn't even get on PC that were from third parties.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a much different time where the games are on so many, and now you have Sony making Sony Computer Studios or whatever the fuck it's called.
They had something like that back in the day,
but they weren't.
Sony Computer Entertainment.
Yeah, but you're thinking of like Sony ImageSoft when they weren't making hardware yet. They actually had. There's a Sega CD game called Dracula, or Bram Stoker's Dracula. And in the beginning has that feather that floats down, goes da 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 da. That's Sony. That was Sony before Sony was PlayStation.
But they had, even when the PlayStation was out, they had, you didn't hear about it much over here, but they had a computer entertainment brand to do like MMO type things, because they always used to go in and demo them at E3, and then you'd never hear anything about the game coming out. And they had some pretty interesting stuff on that label. They just don't know how to market to PC gamers. Or they're learning now because they're putting their exclusives out on PC.
Yeah, God of War,
which I think is smart.
Oh God, you're going to be able to play God of War in your fucking Steam Deck. It's going to be insane.
Yeah, you know? And I mean, those are legitimately good games. Some people aren't going to want to buy a gaming PC for that, and they're only interested in console players buying consoles. They finally figured out you can't force people to buy a piece of hardware. They're gonna make choices, and everything's just gotten too expensive.
Yeah, and the developers or corporations because the games are so expensive, they just want you to fucking buy them, whatever the hell. If this bird played video games, they'd want you to buy Call of Duty or whatever, or Halo for the bird.
Well, yeah, they also want their brands to get out on PC so people can try them, like them, and then, oh, gee, maybe they'll pick up a console because they want to play it in the first year, right? Or they won't, and they'll still get some money.
Think about this accessibility that ties into the Series S. The Series S is the perfect child or boomer console.
Yes, it is.
You have kids, they're younger, you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you want them to have access to some of the current gen games. You buy a Series S and then you buy Xbox Game Pass, and it'll probably end up saving you money. Or it's for the guy who's my age, who's, you know, all right, I just want something that I could game on. I don't want to have to buy, I'll pay the Xbox Game Pass price of $10 a month, and I could just turn it on whenever the hell I have time.
Yeah.
So they did that too.
Yeah, no, it's interesting what they're doing. I mean, all the companies are struggling this holiday because of the 1-2 punch of, you know, raw material shortages and COVID making everything really hard to get. I mean, it's really interesting to see some of the trade magazines acting like this is some big blow for companies when I read The Economist and stuff like that, and they've been saying, look out for the supply chain shortages since COVID started.
Because
That was
and it lags too. It doesn't
Yeah.
just
it hasn't they can't get the stuff off the boats in the ports fast enough, so everything's just getting
clogged up.
bunged up. Yeah, and there's nothing that really can be done about it. It'll eventually clear itself, but multiple points of the supply chain are being affected, and those chip manufacturers now, I mean, the whole thing about these next gen or current gen consoles was the different, the power management chip and the custom hybrid, CPU and all that stuff, the SSD stuck right on it and all that stuff, and all that's custom.
Yeah.
It needs to be made by somebody to put into the PlayStations, and they don't want. I mean, when the PlayStation 5 first shipped, it looked like it might be another like RROD situation with the high rate of failure on those things, but that seems to have slowed.
I haven't. Where did you hear about that? I never heard about that.
Oh, when I was looking to buy mine, I actually waited an extra month because people were saying that they do an update and the console wouldn't turn on. There were startup issues with the PS5 in a particular power saving mode. There were a bunch of issues. I mean, to me, the weirdest thing with the PS5 is just having to completely relearn the interface.
Yeah, I don't mind it though. I thought that was okay.
I like what they've done. It just, there's a learning curve, and much like PlayStation historically, they're not really good at explaining what they're doing. Xbox would have a whole tour that took you through it and videos and all this stuff, whereas PlayStation is just like, they'll figure it out.
That seems like a Japanese company thing, because that's something Nintendo would do too.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, Nintendo makes things that are a lot simpler though, so maybe it's not an issue, but you're right. Navigating parts of the Nintendo eShop are a little bit not intuitive.
And their online service, where you have to use an app on your phone for certain games to use voice chat, that's like the exact opposite of simple.
Yeah, I watched your coverage on that. I was like, what? I don't use any of that stuff on Nintendo. But yeah, that's weird. Nintendo's always been weird about communications though, right? They haven't quite figured out how to keep it kid friendly, but still have that experience people want.
Yeah, the nice thing about Nintendo with the Switch is that they're letting you... They're not trying to dictate what you could play on there. I mean, they didn't really do it on the Wii U either, but now I see Nintendo... Like, Nintendo is actually less censorship friendly than Sony is in some cases. Which is... I never thought I'd see the day that happened, because Sony used to run on being edgy when Nintendo was kid friendly.
I think that's interesting, and I think that's Nintendo... I think we've talked about this before, but that's Nintendo recognizing that when things are a mainly online shopping environment, people have to search for the stuff they want. So, I mean, a kid is not going to stumble upon Senran Kagura Burst Renewal. I picked that game because I played it, and because of the whole censorship debacle, and I found I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. But kids aren't going to...
They're not looking for that shit. Or the parents should be seeing the curating with their kids playing. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's your responsibility as a parent that, that your kid isn't playing the 2021 equivalent of beat 'em and eat 'em.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I do think the way, it's password protected. Every transaction, you have to enter your password again. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but parents can't claim their kid just got a hold of it and ran up the credit card.
Yeah, it's the hardware. Your smartphone shouldn't be your kid's babysitter. Or whatever, their Switch or their Xbox. Your job is to make sure that they're not doing something dangerous or stupid.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I mean, I think perhaps Nintendo has woken up to the fact that the Nintendo generation is now 35.
Yes.
Kids are playing Fortnite on tablets, so that kiddie brand, maybe they realize that that's short-sighted and they have to start making games for the people who are actually their core constituency and wait for their kids to age up enough that that 8 to 10-year-old primary demographic actually kicks in.
You want to know the proof to that? Not the truth. The proof to that. When they first introduced the Switch, the first reveal video, it was mostly young adults to adults in that thing.
Yep.
Because they know that the gaming audience is getting older. Obviously, there's two different ones, but still, there's a big audience of the, I would say, like 23 and plus club that they want to cater to.
Yeah. Well, it's the nostalgia crowd, right?
And it's also, and gaming is also even if you look at commercials back in the day, the commercials were more for kids. Now it's not that, it's nowhere near like that. There's certain games, let's keep it real, like Fortnite, they kind of go more towards that, but anyway.
Yeah.
So tell us about your project as I sit here in front of beautiful birds, by the way.
Do you want to do super chats first?
Let's do some super chat. Yeah. Let's do some super chats. I
realized we didn't do an introduction. We just kind of started. We'll get there, but people were super chatting. So.
Yeah, and the THC kind of kicked in like a freight train in like 30 seconds before we went live. Okay. Hey, sent you a Twitter. I have a 360 wireless adapter I can send you, not for the bird. Okay, A-Dot. That's actually interesting. Because I'm going to make another video about playing the Xbox 360 online in 2021, which will be very. I actually played I got a match of Halo 3 on the 360 within like 2 minutes in 2021. Nice. Think about that. Bush was still in office when that game was released.
I still have my 360 hooked up because they don't have the fully functional co-op mode back compatible on Xbox, so I still have my 360 plugged in to play Gears 2.
Yeah, and now with them not making any more friggin' games, you're not making any more games backwards compatible, I should say. That's it. So if you have a game you were hoping that on the 360 that was going to become backwards compatible and it didn't, I got some bad news for you. Well, also note that the PS5 had its heatsink reduced, and Sony is planning on making a cut down PS5 that doesn't use as many chips. That is right. That is 110% correct. This is Liana Kersner, and after we get through these other three super chats, she is going to tell you about her new upcoming project. Do you think it's to prevent online grooming?
That was the Nintendo thing.
But again, that should be your, I won't let my kid even use a headset when I let him play Fortnite from time to time. I mute everything.
They got really intense when Copa came in.
Yeah.
So it probably is indirectly entertainment people are scared shitless of the whole, you're encouraging sex trafficking, you're encouraging child grooming. They're terrified of it right now. So yeah, it's probably.
Hey Liana, they just came out with a new Senran Kagura game. It's a hack and slash crossover with Neptunia. You should try it. I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
Senran Kagura is this oddly compelling game about high schoolers there are like evil ninjas and good ninjas, but there's a petting mini game and you can dress them in these like cosplay outfits. And
yeah, that sounds like something I would not be interested in. That's probably why I know nothing about it.
I thought it was something I would not be interested in, but I really got into it. I don't know why. It was actually some pretty decent action combat for a AA level game. And I'm very curious about this new one.
Okay.
Yeah. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. Changed my mind about that kind of game.
So that was Beagle Boy Gaming. Never been into FPS unless they're boomer shooters. And you would love Dusk. Support that developer, man. They just came out. They gave me a code to play on stream, and I've played it a few times on stream. It's a boomer, and it's so smooth. It's smooth even on the Switch, man. I mean, the
game is called Dusk?
D-U-S-K, Dusk, on the Switch. And the developer is awesome, and they optimize the living shit out of it for the Switch. Which, even though it looks like it's an older game, that was actually easier said than done because it runs on a modern engine. Anyway, F.E.A.R is now 60 FPS on the Series X. I'm getting F.E.A.R just for that. Your take, it feels... I played it when I was actually more excited for. I'm actually really enjoying the Halo Infinite beta, but I was actually more excited for F.E.A.R 1 being backwards compatible than I was for that. It feels like they remastered it. They did a better job. Microsoft did a better job remastering F.E.A.R for the 360 than what you paid $60 for the Grand Theft Auto remake. Let that sink in.
That's not saying much, but still, fair point. I mean, the F.E.A.R series was underrated. It was great, and I can imagine in 60 FPS those opening sequences where you're zipping through that factory and everything like that. That's got to be pretty sweet.
I mean, it's great. They did I think it feels better now than even the modded version on PC, unless there's some miracle mod. But the thing is that they got rid of on the PC, even modded with F.E.A.R, if you run it at 60 FPS or higher, like there's a lot of the physics jank. So when you shoot someone, like they just fly through the ceiling. It seems like they got rid of that mostly on the 360 version, and it runs at 60. And one thing I think they got rid of that was a problem on the original 360 F.E.A.R is the auto, like, you know how like they have aim assist? Like the aim assist, pretend I'm holding a gun, was like vroom, vroom sometimes in F.E.A.R on the 360. I think that's gone too.
Nice.
So it's a remaster. It's not just backwards compatible. It's like the best way right now to play F.E.A.R personally that I could think of is right now on the Series X. I don't know if the Series S is 60, maybe.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Good for the franchise. That stuff makes me happy.
I hope they come back with one, man. They haven't made one since F.E.A.R 3 back in 2011. It's like the perfect time to bring it back to with the beefy hardware.
Yeah, it's weird, some of the behind the scenes stuff that happens with those franchises and why there aren't more. You know, some developer leaves, or it's all like rights acquisition, or they don't make enough on a point system, or there's all this weird like Byzantine stuff behind the scenes.
It's IP hell it goes into.
Yeah.
You could have like 12 people that have their hands in the intellectual cookie jar too.
Yeah.
Or 12 corporations, I mean. So, let's make a 007 remake. Nope. Hey, we have one done for the 360. It's coming out. Nope.
We're finally probably going to get a proper Alan Wake sequel. 10 years plus later. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're finally going to do it. That took Remedy a long time to get the rights back from Microsoft. See, that was initially an exclusive on the Xbox.
Yeah, then that was so like, that's going to the PS5. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because I guess they got the rights back to the whole thing. So now they can distribute it. But they had to backdoor that through Control. They did a whole Alan Wake DLC, and that's the only reason I played Control. And after that, all this momentum for an Alan Wake sequel happened.
Control, I always like kind of get into Control, and then it like literally just like something snaps in my brain with Control where I just can't keep going. I don't know what it is. There's an example.
It's the anti-Senran Kagura. That's a game I should have loved. And I just bounced off it again and again and again. There was just something not quite there, except for a couple levels that were absolutely majestic, but the overall experience of it felt very dated in a bad way.
Yeah, that was kind of like how Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus with me. Like, it looks like it should be like my dream game in terms of a first-person shooter. And I just play it, and there's just something that doesn't connect between the controller and me. Like, it's just weird. That game, it still feels, I try it now, maybe it was like, maybe I was being too hard on it. I'm like, no, it still feels flighty and feels like shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's the map. Yes, the map in Control is fucking atrocious.
It's terrible.
Yes.
Terrible. Apparently deliberately, but the only map that drove me about as crazy as a map in Control was the one in Nier Automata. The map in Nier is terrible.
Dude, just like here, why do people consider like, Metroid Dread, that's part of the challenge? Look, here's the thing, man. It sucks because the gameplay of Metroid Dread, like the 2D platforming combat of Metroid Dread is beautiful. I hate getting lost to the point where I'm going around in circles for 6 fucking hours. That's not entertaining to me. I'll walk around, my fat ass will walk around my fucking house. Like,
see, that's interesting from a design point of view because, yeah, they went full retro with that game, but there's just, this is a good segue because this is something we're working with in the project that I'm working on. There's retro and then there's dated. And maps that are too hard to read, that's something that should kind of stay back in 1989, right? You can make that better. It's not an excuse to not make it better because, oh, the original Metroid was like that. And I love the original Metroid. So it's like Stockholm Syndrome. I'll put up with the not great maps because of that nostalgia experience. But you're absolutely right that if a player like you, who otherwise loves it, finds it's getting in the way, shouldn't have done it.
And that's, you know what, a game I like that did it right is at least the first two Dead Spaces, where if you don't want to use the map and you want to explore and you want to figure it out on your own, and I have the sense of direction of a half-dead fucking flea, but you want to do that, God bless. I will have a button. If I can't get lost, which I will, it goes do-do, do-do, and it shows you where to go. Why is that? Like, puzzles are fine. Puzzles are different. But if the puzzle is me walking around in circles for 6 hours like an asshole, I don't enjoy that.
See, I used to get lost in the Halo maps all the time because everything was so shiny.
Yes. Yes, the shine was real.
I never get lost in Doom. Doom Eternal's a brilliant friggin' game. Talk about a great shooter. Don't get lost in Doom. Don't get lost in Metroid. Halo, I always get lost in. And it's just because everything's so up and down and so very shiny.
Yes.
It's weird.
And even if you have like a waypoint, like it shows you where to go, like for some reason, like you don't get there. I've noticed that with Halo as well. That's a thing. Okay. Maybe it's just not my terrible sense of direction. But I don't really care because I always just play the multiplayer anyway. And the multiplayer is magnificent.
Yeah.
Have you played the multiplayer?
Does it look as liquidy when you're playing it as it did on the presentation?
No.
Okay.
I'm playing it on the Xbox Series S. Maybe if you played it on the Series X, it has some extra motion blur features maybe that's why, or maybe you play it on max settings on PC. But I'm not seeing it. I have it on performance mode on the S, and I don't see that.
Okay, that's cool. Because when I was watching the presentation, it probably just stream crud, but it looked like everything was through like a wet pane of glass or something like that. And
that was compression. That sounds like compression.
Yeah.
That sounds like when sometimes if I render a video and something derps when I render it, that sounds like compression. Because
I mean, Halo, shit, I've lost track of what game we're up to right now. The one after Cortana went crazy.
That was
5. Yeah, that felt like the light was doing they were trying to show off HD or something like that. I don't know, 4K, but the light did strange things for me in that game.
You know what was weird about that game, and they do it in Dying Light for the Switch, but that's more understandable, is to make Halo 5 60 FPS, but if you see people or enemies really off in the distance, they're running at 30 FPS. That always kind of distracted me, because I guess that was to save resources, but still it kind of looks like, you know? Especially, like, at 30, it's more tolerable if they cut down the frame rate, but at 60, it's just really noticeable if you cut it down from there.
Interesting solution, but yeah, that would be a bit off-putting.
Yeah, well, that's what I know. They do that in Dying Light on the Switch too, where if like you see a zombie in the distance, it's running at like 15 FPS as opposed to 30. But it's not. It's more forgivable, I guess, because the game is only 30. But so yeah, what's the performance mode on Halo Infinite on the S? Did they get to 120 on there? I never watched Digital Foundry's video. Ugh. So yes, tell us about your project. This is a perfect segue as I'm...
Yeah, okay. So guys, I'm Liana. Hi. Liana K, Red Liana K on social media. I'm a YouTuber as well. Rich and I used to do a podcast together. I've been in a stream a few times, but I've moved into game development. And right now we're crowdfunding for a game called Boss Fight Song of Sparkle Muffin. It's based on my Boss Fight web series. We took a bunch of characters, put them in a classic like JRPG style setting with old school adventure game elements, and we're one of the things we're doing is sort of, okay, let's do indie dev differently. Let's question everything. And crowdfunds are normally, you know, at the end, there's the game tier and the get your name in the credits tier. And then all these hundreds and hundreds of dollars, get your name on a tombstone in the game kind of thing, right? For like 150, 200 bucks. It doesn't cost that to implement. And it's a really inefficient way of doing it. So we're doing it early on, just if you want to be an NPC in the game or a sub boss or, you know, a quest giver or something like that. We're doing this campaign because if we do it early on, everybody's NPCs are implemented naturally, as opposed to going in and having to retrofit everything at the back end.
Shoehorn it in, yeah.
Yeah. I've worked on other games that, you know, we did a successful crowdfunding campaign, and then that last year implementation of backer incentives became this feature creep nightmare, because you have to go back through, find all the placeholders you left in the game for the portrait or this or that, or it's just, you know, in Hollow Knight was that one graveyard where all these characters, and it screamed Kickstarter backer incentive. So we wanted to do it differently. And we also, because of the supply shortages with gaming, we thought this would be a cool Christmas gift for somebody to give somebody who has everything, like, you know, be a character in the game. And Rich, we'd like to put you in the game.
Okay.
For letting us come on the stream. Obviously, you know, there's the base salad thing, but we'll talk to you and put you in the game so your fans can know
That's awesome.
that you're going to be in the game as a character in a place of honor, because we think you're awesome.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. We'll get an applause out for that one.
Yeah, so bossfightgame.com is the website. Yeah, so people are like, put this person in. That's the kind of cool thing about this. We were talking off air about how we liked what Supergiant did with involving their community with the development of Hades. Obviously, we don't have that kind of money right now, but the idea is great. And it's a very anachronistic setting. There was a lot of fourth wall breaking in the web series. And this came out of the writing tier. In the web series, people actually got to write the backstories for some characters. I thought they were going to be little things that were real super simple. No, they created this whole shared universe. And so like, okay, guys, we're going to assign D&D stats to your characters. They did that. It was very unbalanced, but we had all this stuff. And coming to the end of Boss Fight, the series, it was like thought about season 2, thought about shorts. It's like, no, these are video game characters. Let's make a game. So it's very, in parts, it's very South Parky in its humor. In other parts, it's kind of that more throwback to the old Sierra or, you know, LucasArts adventure games with sort of a more innocent form of humor. But there's a lot of loving jokes about gaming, the gaming industry, and what goes on in games. So it's very, very satirical, very, very farcical, but we're hoping for solid gameplay as well.
That's what people are asking. That's what I was going to ask too. What platforms is it coming to?
When you were talking about optimizing for the Switch, we're starting with PC, Mac, fairly rapid port to iOS and Android. Consoles come next. Ideally, we started looking at the Switch to optimize for that. It's a nightmare. You lose so much. So yeah, we're doing PC and Mac with tablets next, and then hey, if a console wants to take us on, that'll be great. But you know, one thing at a time.
Yeah, I know there's more hurdles with consoles than there is with other platforms too.
Yeah, it's just the Switch is a wind-up toy at this point, and we were losing so much on the battlers, the combat scenes by trying to squeeze it through that sphincter to get on the Switch.
That memory bandwidth sphincter.
Yeah, and so we're like, all right, if this does well enough on PC and Mac and you know, the mobile market is big in and of itself. Not to don't you have phones, but it makes more sense to do a Switch port than to have everything else suffer for trying to optimize on the Switch. I'd really like to see it on the Switch, but
you'd rather get it on the other platforms than whittle it down to run on the Switch, which is like what 90% of the industry does right now. That's why Dying Light came out 5 years after it was on the other platforms.
Yeah, we didn't want to cannibalize the experience because the artist on it, what he's doing is fantastic, and we were looking at thanks to the success so far of the Kickstarter, we've actually been able to upgrade some stuff. And once we hit that first stretch goal, we're going to be announcing what we're doing, but we wouldn't be able to do a lot of those upgrades if we had to force it on the Switch in its base form. It just doesn't make sense to people who have these really fantastic machines and are early adopters, and PC and even some you know, more devoted mobile communities like the Azure Lane community. They're really supportive things and they'll really go out and evangelize. So we're taking advantage of that kind of stuff.
I mean, and to defend their decision to not go on the Switch, like, you have to understand, like, even like a mid-range smartphone right now would wipe its ass with the Switch in terms of like GPU capability and CPU and memory bandwidth. Like, the chip in the Switch was 2 years old when the Switch came out.
I think an iPhone 9 is more powerful than the Switch.
You mean either iPhone 8 or iPhone 10, which are based, I think, have the same chip. They have the same chip.
Yeah, of course I picked the one. I forgot. I was working on a Unity game year and a half ago, and we had the same problem. Is we wanted to optimize for Switch because of the player base, and Unity's got its quirks to begin with, but it was just heartbreaking how much we were losing with the Switch, and we eventually realized, no, we'll do PC. You know, we'll use that Steam early access concept, which is perfect for what we're doing. Build up a community there, get some awareness of the game and that it actually is quality and it's not another one of these walk around and talk to people and that somehow are indie games, and go from there. I'd love to see it on the Switch. It would be perfect for the Switch. We're just gonna have to take, like many things in my career, a indirect path to get there.
That's why I still think, and other people have said it too, that the Nintendo Switch OLED, if there wasn't a semiconductor shortage, was going to be the Switch Pro that both the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg were talking about basically right after the Switch came out in 2017. I have a feeling they were going to put different guts in there, but it just wasn't worth it. Like, I think Samsung didn't come out with the Note 21 because of semiconductor shortages.
People are pissy at me because I called it a wind-up toy. No insult to wind-up toys. Wind-up toys have their place, right? It's Nintendo needed to hit that price point. It was what they could do. It's an awesome system for what it does. Just, I'd rather do things right for the various systems we're going to put it on instead of, oh, let's try to do this all-in-one, one-size-fits-all solution and satisfy no one completely.
Yeah, you rather port it over to the limited hardware than give the full experience to the other audience first. Yeah.
And also make sure it's, because there are other issues with the Switch, not just graphics, right? As Grand Theft Auto Trilogy proved. So that's what we don't want. Some of those some of the animations, just those little battle animations, they can really slow things down, and going in and finding out exactly what's clogging up the works takes some time. If we have to pull a couple of those animations for a Switch version, well, we'd rather do that and have it run, right? As opposed to janking the frame rate. It's turn-based, so it doesn't matter as much. It's still annoying, though. I don't like it when games lag.
Yeah, especially now we're in the age of where frame rate means more than even resolution, you know? So,
Oh, sure.
and thank God too, because you know what was interesting? I just put up that me opening up a brand new Xbox 360 video today, and you go back to those games now, even like Halo 3 and F.E.A.R on the 360, jank central, man, with frame rates. Like, I wouldn't even call the 7th generation a 30 FPS generation. It was like we tried to get 30 FPS generation. Go play Crysis 2 on a 360 right now. You're better off me just handing you a bunch of Polaroids. That's a boomer phrase. Where I'm just going like this, handing the frames to you. It would probably be smoother than what you would see on that.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of developers get in this trap that they want to promise certain specs because it makes people excited, right?
Yeah.
And then they don't optimize. And yes, okay, technically, sometimes it'll run at 60. Most of the time, it's barely running at 45, but letter of the law, right? So this is our first game for the studio. It's a bunch of people who did a bunch of work for other people, and we want to do our own thing and make it a very community focused game. And part of that is to stay within our budget and manage feature creep. And that's one of the things we're doing with this, because it's just we have to make the best game we can with the resources we have. So if somebody comes in and hands us a pot of money, sure as shit we'll go to the Switch. You know, Nintendo does have some good developer supports that way. So I'm not sure why people are acting like I'm saying it'll never be on the Switch. It's just realities.
Yeah, it'll.
Yeah.
It's, you got to go if there's more resources required for a platform, you want to go for the platforms where the money will be with less resources needed. Not that to say there isn't money to be made on the Switch, there definitely is, but if it costs more.
It's the discoverability thing too, right? If
Yes.
you're just another game on the Nintendo eShop, you disappear. If you're coming in with something of a profile based on word of mouth, then people find you.
Yeah, the Nintendo and Valve suck with that. They suck with that. Like you just get lost in the shit in their stores. There's nothing to make you stand out unless you have money.
It's great for Valve. It's great for Nintendo because they want to promote the games that people are looking for, right? Their job is to make as much money for their company as possible. That's the way the business works. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to recognize that things are the way they are, and if you build it, they will come approach only goes so far. One of the things we found working for other studios was that they thought they could start cold when their game was about a year from release, and you really can't. You have to build back community and make sure people know you're there and what you're doing in advance, so when it comes out, you get those early sales and you get the people trying it, and it's gotta be not jank when it releases, which is an important thing too. And yeah, it's interesting. It's been interesting learning about why certain things are the way they are, and a lot of stuff makes a ton of sense, but in a way that you gotta totally shift how your thinking works to sort of comprehend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually, wow, a whole bunch of people have questions here for you. Will this be on this?
Great.
Will this be on the Soldier Boy console?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I didn't think that was a serious question. I thought
no, it's no.
Okay.
There's a lot of real horsepower, man. If you go back to 2012, will there be a Steam early access, Liana?
Yes, of some kind. We're still, now that we have money, we're trying to figure out how much money we have. Early access is great. I've seen it used very well. I've
And
seen
terribly.
it used really not well. And we want to make sure that early access is used in a way that's really good for the people who bother to support the game in early access.
Sometimes
know,
early access has been a money grab. So,
you run out of money and you want to partially release. Some of it is, yes, you do want to get feedback before you finalize certain things. All that's great, but you still want people to feel like they're getting some sort of satisfying experience, because people are putting money down, right, for that
Yeah.
early access game. They're not, these are people who aren't waiting for a sale. You want to treat these people really, really well, right? It's that sort of thing. We want it to be a meaningful community feedback, but we also want it to still be fun for the people paying full price.
yeah. Okay. Maybe a cloud version of boss fight for Switch. That would require maintenance, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? It's also, the game's a couple years out, at least a year out. There could be some major announcement next summer, right, when all these COVID shortages start. So it's another thing of, the Switch is always rumored to have something new out. Do you really want to be an indie dev developing for some hardware that might potentially be obsolete in 2 years?
Yeah. Okay. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart native 4K at 45 FPS in its quality mode. So why don't developers understand that the PS5 horsepower is there? Who doesn't understand it's there? I believe it's there. I believe that both systems were more than satisfactory this time around compared to what they released for the 8th gen with the PS4 and Xbox One. I think they're adequate. I think they're adequate. Liana, do wish lists help your game? I've heard many devs say they are instrumental in visibility.
They do. That's why people put the page up. I mean, don't wish list a game, to try to be a team player unless you're actually intending on buying it, because there's a double-edged sword there. Wish lists are fantastic, but if you underperform what your wish list suggests you're going to be doing, that's its own problem.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
I missed your. Oh man, Mighty Number 9 was promised on way too many systems. Yeah. God, Mighty Number 9. That game was shit too. That was absolute shit. So that's it for the super chats. So, all right. So yeah, you go bossfight.com. I'll put it again in the description.
Yeah. And if I saw one person say, why'd you use Beelzebub? Beelzebub's a character in the game. She's a playable character in the game, along with Princess Sparkle Muffin and Social Justice Warrior Solomon Walker from the Boss Fight series, as well as Princess Sparkle Pony. Princess Sparkle Pony is basically the alchemist character. She crafts poop from the souls that she eats of the enemies, and then you can keep them in your inventory and huck shit at people during combat. That's already in our demo video, the pony taking a squat. So you sort of get a sense of what the game is based on that. Yeah, it's not a intense graphics kind of game. It's a game for people who liked, I don't know if you played it, like Day of the Tentacle and the Monkey Island games and Maniac Mansion and stuff like that, but bringing some of those back into more of a JRPG experience for people who, how you're playing those games and you just wish there was a little bit of combat to break things up.
Mm-hmm.
Just wish you could go and have a couple of fights and grind for a little bit and then go back into solving the social puzzles and things like that. That's the sweet spot we're trying to hit with people who don't want to combat grind the whole time. They want to actually go through and solve puzzles more like an old school adventure game. But after, like you said, your brain just gets tired after a while. So we want to offer multiple solutions to things and have people play the way they want. And those classic JRPG experiences are actually perfect for that. they don't get utilized that way for some reason now. It's all just straight up, hey, pixel art battlers again and again and again.
Okay, so you're really focusing on the pacing of it too as well.
Yeah, we want it to sort of be meaningful for more experienced players. I don't care of how many, but we also want it to be that thing you were mentioning earlier of, if you sit down and you only have a half hour, you can get through a quest and feel like you did something.
And that's, I think, what a lot of developers, even outside of RPGs, are realizing, that you can make a huge game, but you know what I'm noticing more? They're not doing checkpoint saves. They let you save basically wherever the hell you want to.
Yeah.
It's not used enough, but I'm seeing it more, and that makes me happy, because there are times where I literally have to stop right then and there and be like, all right, I guess I'm losing this progress. And now I could literally, like, exactly where my toe is on the ground in the game, I could start up at. That is beautiful.
And I mean, the Switch was great for that, right? Because you can just put it in suspend mode and hope your battery doesn't die. But I definitely think that, respecting the player's time is a mantra you hear a lot in game dev, but it is super important, because sure, you got people who can play for 3-4 hours at a crack. They're playing the Fortnites, the Arcs, the big multiplayer experiences because they can commit.
It's a younger audience, yeah.
I know some people in their 40s who are still, 3-hour WoW sessions.
But generally, that's usually that younger audience with the more expendable time.
It's the Game Pass audience.
Yes.
And the Game Pass audience is great. I've done some streams with some younger streamers, and they've never heard of these sorts of games. They're interested in this as a primer for games that, let's face it, you go back and play King's Quest V or King's Quest VI now with all the soft locks. They're historically important games, but they're frustrating as shit to play. Yeah,
it's amazing how many games in various genres that you go back to now that did not age well. That you look back on fondly. Yeah.
Try to play the original Myst. Like, holy crap, I loved that game, and I go back and play it. It's like, holy shit, 3 hours to light a fucking match. Fuck you, Cyan. And we want modern audiences to understand why these games are significant without having to go through the
tropes,
the dated, the frustration factor. You're not going to convince a 20-something to go back and play Ultima 4.
No, you're
just not. But the morality system, the design of morality, and what it means to be a hero really hasn't significantly advanced since Ultima 4. It's kind of strange. BioWare flirted with it with like KOTOR and Dragon Age Origins, but then they hit that dialogue wheel and it all just Paragon Renegade, right? It stripped all the nuance out of moral choice. So one of the things we want to explore is all these characters are good people, but what a succubus considers moral and what a cloistered fairy tale princess considers moral, what a soul-eating unicorn considers moral, is not, the same as, say, a werewolf from space or a disgraced nobleman.
So you're not making the choices as black and white, as like BioWare has been doing with the wheel, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, yeah, I didn't like that when they went to the wheel. I thought what was interesting in role-playing games should be role-playing games. And unfortunately, with video games, it's become very derivative of stat grinding or min-maxing gear, right? Even the Witcher games started getting into the gear sets and collect them all so you get this extra boost to stats. And that's cool, but you're not really role-playing. One of the Fallout New Vegas was a great game for choice, a series that really opened my eyes. It's not an RPG, it's an open world action game, but is the Yakuza series. And the way they have dialogue role-playing that they're little encounters that are funny and interesting and go nowhere, right? But in some ways that felt more real because not every weird encounter with a person on the street is meaningful, right?
Just like life, yeah. you
Right.
know?
Right. And it became really fun to fail, like completely blow it with the conversation and play Kiryu as like this idiot guy who's terrible with women and fudges social problems. And the game didn't punish you for having the experience you wanted to have in terms of money payouts or like loot drops or anything like that. And that they're not alone in Japanese games, but for some odd reason, Western game developers have this really tunnel visioned idea of meaning and relevance of choice in games. And choice is loot to them, or choice is money to them. What choice, getting a right or wrong answer, as opposed to let's do different combinations, because there's 10 playable characters in parties of 4, right? So obviously there are different choices and different experiences people want to have. And what we want is to people go in, okay, let's create this disaster party for this one particular outcome. You know, put every furry in the game in the same party in a place that is inhospitable to furries, and go in and have a funny, meaningful experience that you can actually play through instead of no, die, load save. Let people have the experience they want to have, you know?
Yeah, it makes it more organic, too.
Yeah, and people, you know, you can't make a game that is for everyone. You can make an RPG that has enough difference in the characters so that RPG players of different types can feel satisfied, right? The person who likes playing paladins is not going to have the same experience as people who like murder hoboing.
Yeah.
And both are valid. You know, I know there's sort of, if I know some people look down on the murder hobo thing, but everybody starts there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting a little gatekeepy in gaming that way, of some things are good, some things are bad, instead of something is just different, if that makes any sense. Or everybody starts there, everybody creates their first Dungeons and Dragons character that's basically themselves, only cool, and
Yeah.
we move from there. So I mean, that's what we're offering people, a chance to be an NPC in the game. Some people are putting their pets in the game. Some people just want to put themselves, only cool. Some people are putting their DeviantArt character in the game. You know, we want people to have the experience they want to have.
Someone here asked an interesting question that I'll answer after I piss real quick. I'll be right back. So you can take
Okay.
over for, yeah, because I've had to piss for like the past half an hour. Be right back.
Oh no. Okay, so I'll just read the chat and answer
On
questions.
my own streams, I could just go.
Streaming on stream. So if anybody has any other, the name of the game is called Boss Fight Song of Sparkle Muffin. Bossfightgame.com is the website you can go to. There's a lot of reference here I don't get. I got the Biden reference. Yeah, bossfightgame.com. Have I ever had diarrhea? Has anybody gone through life and never had diarrhea? Thanks, Dick Mage. Okay, what is this No Nut November thing? Why would anybody opt into that? Vic 20. Technically, all games are a form of toy. So technically, it is a toy. It's Mac PC from the beginning.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, why they brought up No Nut November, Rich?
Okay.
And I said, why would anybody willingly
Not want a nut.
opt into that?
I would never opt in. That is lunacy.
Yeah, like that's just sort of a exercise and self-torture. You don't put in boss fight. Just go to bossfightgame.com. Person in chat. Just bossfightgame.com. That's how you'll find it. There's a website there. That's why we did it. Because Sparkle Muffin, it turns out, is a form of spider as well. And we haven't been around long enough for it to properly populate on things. So we set up a website really, really quick because it solves the problem.
So, Liana, will there be the werewolf cookbook in the game? I think you answered that already.
Yeah, that's a reference to something I talk about from my old book editing days, where you put in a book and it's a thing about dealing with negative reviews, and you'll get the negative review of, this is a cookbook, but I like werewolves. There's no werewolf in this cookbook. 1 star.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's sort of what, if people want to put a werewolf cookbook in the game. The people who've already signed up for like the writing tiers and the quest giver NPC tiers, they're taking it really seriously. And that's what's so cool about this process, is that people only put down, $250 to have influence in a game if they care. It is a form of ego, but it's not at the same time. This is their opportunity to have exactly what they want in the game.
Because they could throw that ego anywhere they want to. They're choosing to throw it at something that they probably have a passion about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they don't. It's not like writing fanfic. You can't do whatever you want. There are going to be rules in the game. It's just subject to developer approval right at the beginning. And so the boss fight series was the same way. People took it way, way, way more seriously than I expected them to. And I admit stuff like that kind of renews my faith in humanity.
Okay.
Because it's somebody actively giving a shit about something, other than food, shelter, and paying their bills.
So, Rich and Liana, I want to be in the... I could already tell you the answer to this super quickly. I want to be in the political commentary and game development separately. Will the former affect game sales, and what can I do if so? Yes, you can't. It's really that simple. It doesn't matter if you lean more progressive or if you lean more conservative. You are going to piss people the fuck off no matter which way you lean, and it will affect your game sales. It's just how it is, especially in 2021.
It's a weird, this was something I did not expect, that people expect you to brand your studio now, not just your game.
Yep.
And they want you basically to take a political stance right off the top.
Yep.
It actually freaked me out when I discovered, after we decided to do this and we got these like manuals on how to run an indie game studio, and I'm like, what? Who cares? It's a comedy game. It's satirical. Do we terribly care what the actual personal politics of the South Park guys are? Not really. We just care if their show's funny.
But that's where we're at right now, man.
That is what we're at. And so, does it affect your sales? You look at games like Hatred, right? The only reason that game sold is because they managed to offend people.
And that game was fucking garbage.
It was all
awful.
Sold, yeah, it was all sold based on hype. That's the exception that proves the rule. Though. It depends on what kind of political commentary someone does. I think if it's issues based, then you're okay. Because say you want to do a channel on, just pulling it out of my ass, like alleviating poverty or transgender rights or something like that, and then you make a game about alleviating poverty and transgender rights, you're right on brand. You're okay.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you get into this partisan stuff where you're online dunking on AOC or Rand Paul or something like that. Political winds can shift so quickly. A lot of that stuff does not age well.
You're better off if you, depending on what you're more, well, first off, what are you more serious about? You want to be a political commentator? You want to be like Kyle Kalinske or whatever, or is game development more important to you? So you can't do both. or if you want to go into game development, honestly, your best bet is to remain politically agnostic. Period. That's the best thing you could do.
Yeah, it's a weird time. You're absolutely right with that. What is more important to you, right? Because one is gonna end up being an extension of the other, right? It unfortunately in game design, you are judged based on your identity, and avoiding politics completely is impossible, right? It sucks. For 10 years, part of the reason I didn't do this sooner.
Nintendo does it, though. Nintendo is totally politically agnostic. You don't know shit about anyone's politics there.
Except we already talked about how they're more anti-censorship than Sony is right now.
That's just a money thing, though. That's not politics.
It's a stance, though, right? It's a stance. It's a for or against thing, right? They almost fell into it because Sony pulled more censorship, right? But yeah, I mean, for 10 years, I couldn't get on any panels. I couldn't get any articles. Nothing.
That sounds like me in 2021.
Yeah, but I mean, I couldn't get anything that wasn't about being a woman, and it took me this long to get
that's so stupid.
Out of that. It is
dumb.
Stupid, but it's so frustrating. And I mean, these are the services that are gatekeeping the content other people get, right? And nobody likes it. The gamers don't like it. Female devs certainly don't like it. But the major gaming websites love to push you into those identity traps.
It's because we're too fucking connected. That's what it is. It's because we're too connected because of social media. Now all these things we never used to. And in some ways, it's definitely improved things, but in some ways, it's made people take a step back in society.
I also think it's a bunch of people who went and got very, very expensive liberal arts degrees or something similar funded by debt and really, really, really want to use that second year sociology course now.
Yeah, especially in the States, college is expensive.
Yeah, like even up here, people are coming out of schools with, degrees in what exactly, and they really want to use them. They really want that credentialism to work for them because they spent all this time going, if colleges, I'll go to college and I'm going to make it. I'm going to do all the right moves. I'm going to check all the right boxes and I will be success. And then they're not. And it makes them really super bitter.
Super salty. Yeah, I've known so many people like that, even back in like 2005. They're like, they're working like a customer service at a furniture store, and they're like all complaining. I'm like, the degree isn't a red carpet that you roll out that hands you a 6-figure fucking job. The degree just gives you a tool to help you get success. The success is still on you.
Yeah, you gotta hustle. You gotta change. Yes. You gotta tweak, right? Yeah. But I mean, like one of the things with the political thing is, I was sure when I created the Solomon character, I was gonna take shit for playing a trans man. I was gonna take shit from my existing fan base because it's woke. I was gonna take shit from the people I'm kind of mocking with the character. He's one of the most popular characters in the whole damn thing. People just love him. Guys love him. Guys are like, everybody either knows a Solomon or is a Solomon because he's like really badly abused by his ex-girlfriend in the series, right? So it's really difficult to predict which way those political winds are going to blow. And I'm at the point where, I was saying off air that I've discovered I prefer game dev stress to YouTuber stress. And that's been an interesting revelation.
Well, is it because your product isn't public yet?
No, because I've worked on other games as well. It's because at the end of the day, you're judged based on the product you make, not based on whatever somebody is grafting onto you because of perceptions about your identity.
Okay.
You know, like there are games that I write a thing here, I consult on, and sometimes they just pay you to not get credited. And it's like, all right, you know, I involved that thing. Nobody's judging me based on personality politics. Nobody's judging me because of an opinion I had about something 5 years ago. Who gives a shit? They still do, whatever. There's a gamers are really great that way, in that if you put out a great product, they will forgive anything but an anti-consumer bent. If you're going to be anti-consumer, forget it. But
you don't think you'll deal with more shit if like the game gets popular, where you'll deal with the nonsense? Because at that point, you still have to deal with the public like you would on YouTube.
yeah, but it's different. It's weird, you know. At least for me, I'm much better at defending a product that is also a, you know, collaborative effort. So I'm here representing not just myself, but the other people working on the game.
Okay.
That's easier for me as an introvert than having to go out there and say, hey, look at me because I'm amusing and stuff, right? It's a different stress.
Which is strange
fear.
because you have a very good screen presence, so it seems kind of effortless from you to be a people person. I guess I could say that too about me, because I hate fucking being out with real people.
Well, what's interesting about me is my mother put me into performance. She put me into dance because I was really introverted, like painfully shy, like won't speak in public. And the reason I liked it is it's like, all right, this is a project. You know, you put in a play or you make a game. People are judging the whole of the project. When you're on YouTube, it's a lot of what people think about you, and everybody has a different process in depersonalizing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've just found I've always had more success when I can write in different character voices. I can write male dialogue, I can write female dialogue, I can write different types of people. In my TV career, I spent 7 years writing for a male character, and then I got cast as the co-host, and I'm like, oh fuck, I have to learn how to speak as a woman again.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to switch hats and be judged without the personality politics. It gets so exhausting when everything becomes about identity and representation. We're calling it an eclectic cast of characters for the games, not a diverse cast, because we found that when people hear diverse, they think it's going to be humorless and scoldy.
Okay.
And we're not doing that, right? I mean, if you look at the graphic, if you look at the cast, obviously there's, you know, it's a fairy tale setting, but there's Asian people, there's mixed race people, there's, you know, different types of Black people. But it's not, oh, look at what good people we are. It's like, this made sense for this character. This seemed interesting. This seemed like a different take on an archer. This seemed like a different take on a, you know, damage soaked tank, things like that.
You're eclectic, not woke. That is what you're saying.
I'm a big fan of 70s, 80s sitcoms, and then 90s variety shows like In Living Color.
Yes, I love In Living Color. Holy shit.
You go back and watch those shows, they were raw.
Mm-hmm.
They were raw about what they were talking about. They pulled no punches, right? You can't do that now the same way. It'll change. We're coming out of it, right?
Very slowly, but yes.
We're very slowly, but we are coming out of it. We're going to need more time. And the nice thing about stories is you can tell, you know, different types of stories about different types of characters. The murder granny in Ghost of Tsushima was a revelation to me. And what an achievement that game made. That it was an all Asian cast with tons of women over 40, some of whom were not straight, and it didn't get any diversity points from anybody. It was just a game people loved, you know? And it became this sort of weird, the gamers game that the left couldn't stand because it ended up in this head-to-head thing with The Last of Us 2. And I was sitting back and watching this whole thing. And it turns out a couple people I know worked on that game. I had no idea until it came out. And they're like, thanks, you like it. I'm like, shit, good thing I liked it. This guy's a buddy of mine. But
shit.
Yeah, it would have been awkward if it was the other way around. But to watch that fight and to get pulled into that fight and to be totally confused about how this game that, you know, employed a ton of Asian people and told some really, really interesting stories was not the one that got embraced by so-called inclusion people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it became this thing where, as one person said, they like both games in chat, and it's like, good, right? I personally did not care for The Last of Us 2 at all.
Me either.
But if somebody liked it, that's great. Life is too shitty to get mad at people because they like a game you don't like or because they don't like a game you like. And that it's that identity thing again, right? Like, people's interests are now their identities, and that's nuts. You know, I know it's No Nut Wednesday, No Nut November, right? Or whatever.
Fuck, No Nut November.
I can't keep all the November shit straight, right? There's Movember, and then there's No Nut November, and then there's Detox January. Like, all this.
I am not giving myself a creepy pedo mustache, and I am not participating in No Nut November. No. You guys have seen me with just the mustache. It is something that Satan himself does not want to see. So
I just think these are the sort of things where it's relegated to 1 month, and I mean, prostate health is super important. I just don't.
And nutting
like
is super important.
Yeah, I mean,
You gonna have a no shit November? Try that one.
Right. That's actually a really apt comparison. You know, I don't know. Everybody needs these things. It's like we don't know how to be humans anymore unless our choices are artificially restricted by these weird, I don't even know what you call them. These, like, I do this thing, so I belong in this faction in the world. Please don't throw me out. Right?
Humans don't like that we're only human, is what it really boils down to, too. Like, we want to be able to reach above these urges for whatever stupid fucking reason. I mean, it's natural, you know? I don't understand. We've always been like that, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I explore a lot in my past work. Because for people who don't know, I used to be on a Canadian TV show called Ed and Red's Night Party, where the bulk of our guests, by the time I was co-host, were porn stars, simply because we were internationally syndicated and people in Europe didn't know who the fuck American celebrities were. Porn, they either knew them or they could look them up, right? And I basically went from being this nerd my whole life to being the dumb slut who was just there to look good, which was weird.
I hate when that happens to me, by the way, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've seen things. You're clearly objectified by large portions of your audience. Your shirt still says poo to me.
Yes, it does. I know.
But I mean, we could do more things on Canadian TV. When the show got sold to a U.S. distributor, they had to cut 3 minutes out of it for commercials, and that was good because you can show toplessness on Canadian television after 11 p.m. at night. You can't in the U.S. The FCC works totally differently. But this got me really interested in this idea of why do we shame things like people who, you know, want to sell sexy time for money, or do porn or do prostitution or anything like that, why do we shame this? Why is stuff like that not a part of humanity that we should process and do in a healthy way instead of something that we should be really weird about and feel shame over? You know, it's so strange. And that's part of where the succubus thing came from. I guess I'm channeling 10 years of having to crawl back out of being labeled a dumb slut. Because I never thought I'd be doing girly calendars or painting my toes on air because people got off on it, you know, or wearing corsets and like crazy push-up bras and things like that. That was never in the plan when I was in school. And to find myself there and to just see people's opinions of me just completely change overnight, it really, what you can't unfuck that. You know what I mean? You can't unring that bell. It's not like Sekiro. You ring that big bell, fuck, all of a sudden life is on extra difficulty for the rest of it, because those photos never go away. And I don't want the photos of me that are online to go away. And okay, I can never run for political office. Other than that, I stand by those photos.
Which makes no fucking sense. Like, newsflash, politicians fuck too. Like,
yeah, but I guess they don't photograph themselves in like Power Girl cosplay or Shadow the She-Devil with the artist signing my ass.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why it's a big fucking deal. I'll never understand it. I'll never understand why everyone wants to, like, pretend they're so Puritan and hold people up to this artificial Puritan standard, which is so fucking stupid.
I don't know if it's Puritan or it's this weird competitive instinct in women. I'm gonna get a little spicy right now.
It's men and women with politics. It's men and women.
The nudity, though, the sexy pictures, eliminate. If you guys want, Google Liana K cosplay. Apologies for ruining your No Nut November. Okay.
That was very humble of you, by the way.
I'm over it. I mean, your editor, the last few times I did a stream, I grabbed the pinup shot of it's like all my ass. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna lean into this. But you know, it's people don't like different, for one. People feel different. People fear different, but people are really afraid of being ostracized, right? And this idea of offending people in that way is still very powerful, and people really don't think about it. You know what I mean?
Everything is based.
Wow, Terrence just hates everything I do, and it's becoming fascinating now. What more can I do?
Reconnection successful. Okay. Hold on. Are we coming back here? Liana, do you see me?
See you? I can see you.
You can see me.
Oh, you're
refresh.
artifacting now. Okay.
Refresh. Hold on. I think it's fixed. I think it's fixed. Oh no, what do they want? Can you guys see me? Can you see me? Hello? Am I back? Am I back? No, there was something that... This happened last time I streamed with Liana too. It might be... Maybe it's something with like Zoom and streaming at the same time. And it always seems to happen around the same damn time too.
Maybe it's a certain amount of time, or
no,
I don't know.
It's not.
It gave people time to Google the pictures.
All right, so it gave everyone's No Note November is ruined,
except for Terrence's, which is good. Like, it takes all kinds.
I don't know what's going on with Terrence. He's usually a laid back dude.
GTA. No, it's all good.
GTA Trilogy has a Metacritic score of 5.5. Of course. It's a fucking piece of shit. They used the mobile version to remaster too. It wasn't even the original versions that they built.
Is that why it all looks so weird and rounded?
And they also just kind of used generic assets from Unreal Engine 4. Like,
Ooh.
so like the art style is just kind of, you know, it's like they phoned it in. They Mario painted the GTA trilogy, the definitive edition, the shit edition. The name is terrible on top of it too.
Yeah.
So it's garbage, and Rockstar is changing and not in a good way. Rich, will you do a collab with Linus Tech Tips? He would never do one with me because I have political takes. There's no way.
Interesting.
I know he just kind of did one with Hassan Piker, but Hassan Piker is also way more relevant to me, so it's worth the risk.
Okay, but he's so political. He tried to take a crack at me and ran away screaming.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's so popular that it's worth the risk for people because it'll still make them a lot of money. That's why I'm not relevant enough to be that popular. So
see, these are the sorts of things that I don't know. That dude's a construction, and I guess somebody's paying somebody to have him there.
Yeah, so there's pockets being lined because again, like but Hassan's very political. Yeah, but will XYZ, so it's worth this, and this. Oh, okay, it's worth the risk. Have him on. You know. That's how it works. I don't know. I have no ill will towards Linus. I love Linus, but I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like with Floyd Mayweather on the other side. He's a fucking woman beater. He's a piece of shit. But you'll still see sponsors like Burger King. I think they were there, or some kind of after he did that because, okay, he's a piece of shit, but he'll make us a lot of money still, so who cares?
Isn't it weird how as long as you stay in the lane that the world is given to you, you can do disgusting stuff, but the minute you start like, hey, maybe I want to change or I want to do something different, people just rebel on you. No, how dare you? You can't be that piece of shit. You have to be this piece of shit that we're comfortable with.
Yeah, because it's not about morality. It's about appeasing what the largest base is. Yeah.
I find what's going on with Rockstar interesting on that count too. I was one of the people who was really surprised they bothered to take the Confederate flag out of their game. So apparently that's a Twitch rule that they will. It violates their terms of service if you stream anything with the Confederate flag in it. So maybe they were doing it because of that. But I just thought, of all the studios Rockstar doesn't need to yank down people's copies of games. Rockstar fans will willingly buy multiple copies of the same damn game as consoles renew. And, you know, I don't know of anybody who's bought only one copy of Grand Theft Auto 5. I know I bought 2.
Oh, there's people who've bought like 5 of and that and Skyrim too. They're reselling Skyrim again for the current gen consoles.
Yeah, the Skyrim I only bought once because you know that there isn't that multiplayer experience with Skyrim. GTA 5 multiplayer is fun as shit. I'm terrible at it, but it's fun. But yeah, it's kind of strange that GTA of all companies, or Rockstar of all companies, would put out a terrible port because they're usually very good about quality control. But also this weird stuff that's going on with the community stuff of pulling down old mods and, you know, the game disappearing from the store and people not being able to log on, and then it was back, and then it was, you know, it weird things. Everything. If it was any other company, I'd say they're having a cash crunch and needed to make some quick money.
Rockstar's changed though, man. If you really think about it, like Rockstar in the 7th generation, they had Max Payne 3, they had GTA 4, they had GTA 5. During the 6th generation, there was a fucking shit ton of games. They had the three GTA games, Manhunt, the Warriors, and the list goes on and on. Ever since after Red Dead Redemption 2, there was that too, but ever since GTA 5, it's just like, oh wow, they found this vein of online, keep people coming back and buying more shit, and all of a sudden, like, their games get more sparse and sparse. And even when they show GTA 5 being remade supposedly again or remastered, I should say, for the PS5 and Series X and S, it's like, it looks exactly the fucking same. What are you doing?
But they managed to make people, how do I put this? I want to be very careful in my wording because you guys are smart and I know you'll bust me if I get this wrong. They managed to make people not maybe like games as service, but made them accept it because people felt like they were getting quality service, right? And it was like they got cocky and didn't realize what they were doing right there. And so they just ran with that and the service started slipping. And I don't quite know what happened internally with that. I know they have issues with retention. But yeah, it's weird. I had some issues with the way I don't know any statistics on what individual users pay for Grand Theft Auto 5 with everything they're doing, but it's probably pretty substantial. They have a really devoted community though, and it's like Call of Duty. If people are fine dumping that sort of money for annual seasons passes, let them go spend their money the way they want to spend it, right? I don't have to understand it. But the minute you go anti-consumer, it's weird because it was like CDPR Rockstar 1-2, 2 years running.
Yeah.
Right? Two companies that were really on a high wire act, but they had a lot of goodwill with gamers because they seemed to give a shit about people's money. And then just 1-2, and you lose that so fast and it's so hard to get it back.
Especially, look at how bad they treated the people who bought it on PC, where you literally, they took away your access to the game because the game was so rushed that they left in a scene that back in the day actually got them sued by the class action lawsuit that they had to pay $20 million. It was the hot coffee sex scene. And it was still in the code of the, and they, cause that's how fat that the game is a rush job all around. Absolute rush job.
That's why it's like they needed to hit a quarterly earnings report or something like that and found a very bad way to do it. It's really strange. Was it an in-house remaster?
No, Grove Street Games. They were the ones who did the ports for Android and iOS too.
So they weren't overseeing it enough.
No, they weren't. And it was, they knew, but Rockstar knew. They went, all right, sign it, stamp it. Why do you think no one had any gameplay really until a few days before?
I'm always suspicious when companies do that. And I've had marketing people, PR people try to explain to me why that's not always a red flag. But to me, it's a red flag.
If you're confident in your game, you're like, I have a feeling now that 343 and Microsoft are very confident in Halo Infinite because we're seeing quite a bit of it. They're even letting you in the multiplayer. This is it. The multiplayer's out. You can play it right now, and it is good.
Which is a massive change for that brand. And I'm glad to see it. Halo was always so under lock and key. I remember pushing them on. Remember when they did those Spartan Ops or something like that? And it was supposed to be weekly content, weekly chapters, ongoing. It was a whole expansion of, what was it, Halo 4 or something like that. But even behind closed doors, they had almost nothing to show. And I asked them, how are you actually going to make this schedule work? If you only have like 3 banked right now, aren't you going to, like, isn't your development schedule, you're going to have to take breaks? You're going to catch up? No, it's going to be 52 weeks. And of course, no, they had to take tons of breaks. They couldn't do it. And maybe they've learned from that. Maybe they recognize they have to get some goodwill back, because
Sony did that with Killzone 2. If you remember, before the PS3 was out, they made it like they were showing gameplay, and that was all pre-rendered CGI. That was bullshit. It was a kabuki theater they were throwing, I think is the phrase.
Yeah, the PS3 was plagued by the not anti-piracy, anti-cracking software. Their source codes where they didn't want to be the Dreamcast and have people just ripping games. And it made the PS3 a very difficult concept to develop for. And they fixed that with the PS4, and I think the results speak for itself.
Yeah, I mean, the PS3 they were deeming as all-powerful, but the architecture just made it a nightmare for third-party developers, especially who had to make games for multiple platforms. They were like, screw this. You know, I mean, but I will say when Killzone 2 actually came out, it was pretty damn impressive for its time in terms of visuals.
Oh, sure. It was one of those showpieces. I just don't think Sony's ever been, I mean, they have the COD audience now, but it's never really been a shooter platform the way the Xbox has. No. Even the controllers aren't designed to be as comfortable to play shooters on.
I think since PS4, I would disagree with that. But yes, in the past, I agree.
Yeah, it just isn't. It's much more of a Japanese thing, and you know, I'm glad that Sony never gave up on those action adventure games. You know, the third-party action adventure games.
Let me tell you though, the adaptive triggers when you play first-person shooters on the PS5 is sexual. There's no other way to describe it.
The controllers are the reason to buy the PS5.
When I heard about all the adaptive shit, and I was just like, wah. It's going to be more gimmicky. Play Quake, the remaster of Quake. You could play it at 120 FPS with the controller where it has the resistive triggers. It's like a new experience.
Yeah, it really
Quake.
Just the fact that, you know, you feel it on the left side, you feel it on the right. It's just very, you know, I feel like holding my controller now just to remember that, even though it's not on it. And this is going to be a challenge for Sony, is that you can't show that experience in a sizzle reel, and you really don't believe it's that big a deal unless you've experienced it.
I mean, the systems, you can't find it anywhere. It's so popular, so they're doing fine. But like, yeah, I thought the same thing about the controller. Like, who gives a shit? It's just like Nintendo with the HD rumble. Like, do I care how many ice cubes are in my fucking glass, Nintendo? But no, the DualSense is real. Like, it's not a gimmick.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's cool about Sony. Sony has a lot of business practices that are super frustrating. But when it comes to actually high-end hardware design, they don't fuck around. They have trouble explaining what they're doing, and their price points can be dumb a lot of the time, but they do make quality shit.
Sometimes. Most of the time. They're like I would say the PS4 thermally wasn't great compared to what Microsoft was doing, even with the base. Well, the base Xbox One, they just made a giant VCR, so it was impossible that it couldn't cool itself. But like,
unless you put anything on top of it or stored it on its side the wrong way.
Yeah, well, they were. I mean, you should. I bet they just decided that you couldn't. But
except I have cats, and they sat on the Xbox.
Oh,
and I was like, oh shit, like just completely freaked out. It's gonna blow.
Yeah, and even with the 8th gen consoles, when they're off, they're not completely off. They're doing background processes that the fan, you'll actually feel a little air coming out. So your cats are probably getting their buttholes warmed.
I actually went in and shut that feature down. Like my Xbox One, it's off when it's off because of that. At least with the PlayStation, it's all out the back. And as long as you give it plenty of fart room, you know, it's like being at a dinner with Joe Biden. Just give that cloud plenty of room to dissipate. It can be loud and it can be long and it can go on all night, right?
I guess like Joe Biden's ass. I had no idea Joe Biden farts.
Oh, you didn't hear that Camilla Parker Bowles story?
No, what happened?
Oh, there's this weird... The chat was mentioning it.
No, wait, he was farting?
Somebody... It was one of those UK tabloids.
Corn Pop was a bad dude with a big hole.
One of these tabloids alleged that somebody in Camilla Parker Bowles' staff reported that the Duchess of Cornwall was quite hung up on the fact that it at what is that climate conference, Copacabana or whatever it's called, COP26 or something like that. She was at an event with Biden and he let out a wall rattler and many emissions jokes spewed. And Politico had to write up about this and clearly did not take it at all seriously. But yeah, there's fart Biden shirts being sold by Trump guys online right now. It's this weird non-story, but I don't care. I assume presidents fart. So I don't
But he probably has old man butthole where he can't control his hole. Like, he's probably just like, Donald wanted me to rip this right now.
See, I kind of imagine Clinton had that when he was like in his 40s. But I mean, then you hear about guys like Kennedy who secretly had Addison's disease and all that stuff. I mean, presidents fart. Right?
Oh yeah. Like, do you think that Donald Trump does not fart? Come on, he's like, I have a tremendous hole that is spray tanned. I'm going to spread my cheeks and let out air out of my ass.
I don't know. If he farted, he'd make everyone in the room kind of not say he farted just for. I don't see Trump being super comfortable farting in public.
But he lets out some rippers. I'm sure he just looks like a kind of guy where he's just like, I don't know. Once everyone leaves, like maybe he wants like Melania to smell his farts. I don't know.
Oh, all that fast food probably.
Yeah, he eats well done steaks with ketchup like he's a child. Trust me, he farts.
That's a good point, but he probably doesn't. Okay, people like that. But
I rip on both fucking. I always that random speech he gave where he was at a pool. Corn Pop was a bad dude. He had a lot of bad boys, and then he starts talking about his hairy legs, and like kids wanted to rub him. And I'm like, what the fuck? You ever seen that speech with Joe Biden?
Oh, there's been so many. I remember when John McCain, rest his soul, was on Saturday Night Live, and he had the Joe Biden doll, and it had like the pull string on it. It says, pull his string. He talks for 45 minutes, and he just sat there, and he actually got a big laugh on that one. And I'm like, this was right when politicians doing SNL was considered an essential campaign stop. I mean, McCain was the nominee, so it was against Biden. Obama. Biden the first time around, but Obama. But yeah, Biden's been a known commodity that way for a while.
The Simpsons and Saturday Night Live, like everyone I know hates both of them now, but for some reason they still get enough viewership, I guess, to be profitable. I don't understand. I never hear anyone say, oh, The Simpsons is funny now, or oh, SNL is funny now. I always hear it's terrible.
Different things. I mean, The Simpsons just goes on forever and people watch it because it's habit, right? Whereas SNL, keep in mind, NBC owns a major cable news network. So if they do political stuff, they can run it on their news and get earned media.
Double
right?
dip the ad revenue.
Yeah. And so I see it all the time on it. For the longest time, I'm like, why is it always Sundays on MSNBC? They're covering Saturday Night Live. Oh, right. It's an NBC program.
I didn't even think of that.
Anything now that gets people to watch TV when it's on, so you can't speed search through commercials. They are just clinging to, we go back to buttholes, like a clenched butthole. They're just hanging on to that. They're not going to let that turd go because they're terrified of cord cutters and live anything they believe preserves that nest egg TV audience.
Yeah, because if that's the only thing you can get him with is the live stuff, because everything else are just going to go to other places.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing about games versus TV as well. With games, you make the game, people pay for it, and they'll buy it 3 years later. You don't care, right? With TV, you have to make all your money on that first run plus, whatever markets. Streaming is making television crap its collective pants. They do not know what to do with it.
No. And I don't think there is anything they can do with conventional television. It's on its way out. So,
well, it's content. The people who make the content have the power now, right? Because they can take it to Netflix. I mean, look at Lucifer, just got this massive second life on Netflix, and I don't think the last few seasons would have been as good on Fox. You know, it was sort of the right show for there. They knew how to adapt to sort of streaming better. Not every show can do that, but it shows that there isn't that much difference between what people want to watch on a streaming service and what people want to watch on regular TV. The thing that's got me impressed is going back and watching all the old like Vault content on Disney Plus. Just what I watch. I mean, I know Disney's data mining every little beep I put into it, but man, am I not enjoying Spider-Man and the Amazing Friends and Golden Girls.
yeah, and they are data mining, but hey, you're getting to watch what you want to watch anytime you want to watch it, and that's what's killing network television.
Well, and I don't know how we can really complain about that. When you game online, they monitor every decision you make.
Of course.
Interviewing Valve for Left 4 Dead 2 was one of the things that actually made me get out of game journalism, because the answer to everything was data mining and focus groups. Every decision they made on Left 4 Dead 2 was based on some sort of testing something. And I just felt myself dying during the interview, because you want to hear, oh, we were really inspired by this, and this inspired us, and you know, this friend's dog caught a bird once and it was really gross, and so we use that as a jib effect or something like that. But everything was data mining, focus groups. Yeah, we took a poll in the office and that was the most popular. It's like, this is not creation, this is a factory. You know, this is street meat level creation here, and I just couldn't.
And that's what 99% of the industry is. Since
Triple A, yeah.
And speaking of which, let's plug your project one more time before we shut it down.
Oh yeah, because there's new people here.
Yeah.
I actually appreciate going on streams like this just see feedback and chat as well. It's really helpful to see how people react and what people are interested in games. You know, the Switch feedback was really, really useful here. The fact that it's worth the extra work. It's good to know. But yeah, it's bossfightgame.com.
I already have it in the chat there.
Yeah, thank you. That'll take you to the website, which will take you to the crowdfund. The crowdfund is going on for another 15 days. We're very much looking forward to putting Rich in the game. That's going to be super fun.
That's awesome.
And you can be an NPC in the game as well. So if you wanna join Rich, there probably won't be as many in-jokes to mine, but yeah, that's basically it. Song of Sparkle, Muffin, Crowdfund. If you want to learn more about the game, you want to learn more about all this stuff, check it out. We've got lots of videos. Song Sparkle is our Twitter feed. We've got lots of videos, and we've done the artist recorded drawing every character portrait, and we do like a little 2-minute discussion about the origins of the different characters while it draws. It's really cool. We're really making sure people know plenty about this game before we release, because one of my big pet peeves is selling a game on mystery. I cannot stand it. I hate that marketing tool. I think people should know what they're getting when they plunk down their money.
100%. And the mystery, I don't buy the mystery. The mystery is a bullshit. Mystery means you don't know exactly what you're doing and you don't know the next step. That's the mystery.
Yeah, it's
crowdfunding.
Also, they're trying to market based on hype. We can't do that as a small indie studio. But it's always like, we can't tell you that. We're not that. I had so many AAA devs lie to my face about major game elements behind closed doors that I just don't believe anything anybody tells me anymore pre-launch on a game.
Yeah.
It just can't. When they lie openly, and they know they're lying at that point, there's no way to you know, there's no way to work around some of the bullshit I was forced to swallow. It just, that's not good for anybody. That's not good for the devs, right? Because marketing's told them to lie. And I'm sure they're not necessarily happy about it, but AAA game devs are terrified of their marketing departments, who are terrified of the games press. It's a shit circle jerk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why indie booming is a good thing, but you know, indie's got its own set of issues.
Yeah, it does. So, all right, thank you so much for coming on, guys. I will probably be back this evening streaming whatchamacallit, Halo Infinite. I couldn't think of it, so I'll get ready for that. And yes, make sure I will put the link in the chat again. Make sure to check out bossfightgame.com, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with more content. And thank Liana for coming on.
Thanks.
And we are